the big thing that I seem to see a lot of problem with, and that it's almost globally, is most organizations still see online as 1.0. So you can get the approval to get the tweet out, but then as soon as you get deluged with Facebook comment statuses, people responding, retweets and whatnot, you're sitting there with like a pile of maybe 50 different things that you need to get back so you can respond to people in public, and your organization is generally like, wait, no, this isn't the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And so 1.0 seems to be okay because of strategies like yours where it's like, well, I'm just going to adopt a press release, but how do you get it to the 2.0 when you're in a bureaucracy?
So they want you to write something, but then they don't want you to engage with the actual audience once the audience asks questions or puts their own.
Or you need the approval to further engage, essentially. Is
Yeah.
what I'm saying. So yeah, so here's, in my experience, what has been effective in order to be able to have this kind of protracted conversation where, you know, how do you get to the point where Ilana talked about, where you have the authority? How do you work with people to get the predetermined message and then work within those confines? I think that a couple of really important things here in order to get to that point are, one, you need to have a clear understanding of the new media landscape and how what happens online is not what happens in the press. That what happens in order to prepare a news story for the print edition for the next day, you move a lot faster, and in order for you to be relevant with what's going on, you need to be able to move down the phrase that I use is how do you hitch to the flow of the news, because if you don't have that, then it'll pass you by and you'll be less relevant. What we found is that in order to be most effective, you need to be in the moment and be able to move. To get to that point, you need to have sign off. You need to have a mutual understanding between the leadership and whoever the decision makers are and yourself that that online is different. And that's really the first step in order to have any sort of confines. Two, it's that you need to establish what the expectations of your audience are online, because people have to, when people interact with a Facebook feed, when they interact with an email that you send out and they reply back to you, or they have a question about it, or let's say that either you're interacting with blogs or you have comments on your own blog, however else, people are going to be coming to you and they're going to expect some sort of response, and they're going to expect it in a timely manner. And part of the culture shift that has to happen is how do you get to an understanding that your organization needs to be able to react to things that to people who come to you, as opposed to you just pushing out information. When you get beyond the point where online is just a broadcast mechanism, then you can begin to have that change in understanding of what you need to do to get your job done online. And so once you establish the two-way communication as a necessary premise to being effective online, you can begin to have an understanding of, okay, well, yes, you can interact with people as long as you stay within these guidelines. It's really about making people understand how online is different from traditional means.
The two ways that I found my organization's places I speak in with most able to buy into the it has to be two-way is one, when your boss complains that your site traffic is down, you say, yeah, because no one can talk with us, right? The other way you can make a case is if you work for an organization that privileges democracy and being empowering to the public, that is what this is. So you need to speak with them in their own language to campaign for this. Say, we are an ideologically oriented organization that believes in democratic communications. We believe in empowering our members, and this is one more way to empower them, right?
I come from a relatively much smaller staffed organization than any labor unions, frankly. And what I've been able to do is sort of develop this organizational culture of understanding of the implications of what we're actually doing, where you have to shift from a concern, a fear, as if there's negative implications, to what is your overall goal is to organize people to achieve a political goal, building a movement, and that is actually the implication here. It's a positive implication. It's not a negative one. And so once you can use those talking to your colleagues in that sort of way, you can build that organizational culture that new media and online organizing are not things that we need to be afraid of, and also that. Especially in my organization, online organizing is not something that will replace traditional organizing. It's never a replacement. It's a supplement. It's an enhancement. And then, as far as I think, one of as far as the specific things that we're putting out into the world, whether they're one-way or two-way focused, I use. Essentially guidelines, trying to figure out the different types of communication that I'm putting out, and what would need, figuring out in my head classifications of that. What is just a repetition of a particular press release or policy memo, but converted the language so that it's more social media friendly, versus really saying something that maybe is not an organizational issue that we're covering at the moment. We're not actually working on something, but as a progressive in the world, I feel like commenting, and I feel like I should be able to comment on that. There's, if once you can separate what you're saying into classifications like that, you can figure out specific chain of command, if you will, ways that you can get the necessary approval, and that makes it much more efficient for you.
Which totally reminds me of something quick, is one of the ways that you do want to engage online is to not just be talking about your own issue, but you need to be able to talk about stuff broadly in the movement. The way I was able to get to do that was I just spoke up the ladder of the political department, for example, and said, okay, am I right in thinking these are the issues that the union has a stance on and that these are our policies on it? And like, yeah, I'm like, okay. And I presume that you don't want me talking about abortion rights. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, done. So you're cool with me just because I understand the general perspective. Being able to throw in a 2 cents if about immigration, for example, which is not necessarily the organization's core issue, but something that's close enough. Yeah, okay, done. Maybe that's because our political department trusted me a certain amount, but
it's about how do you, when you're focused on a narrow set of issues, how do you then attach that to what else is going on in the world in order to make yourself relevant to what people are already talking about?